Welcome to the Deep Dive, your essential shortcut to knowledge, where we take complex source material and extract the most valuable, unforgettable insights.
Today we are strapping on our linguistic gear.
We are, and we're diving into one of the most fertile yet, well, treacherous fields of communication, that space between Spanish and English.
That's right. We have a crucial mission today, and this is one specifically designed for you, the learner. You shared an excellent, very focused guide that targets the top pitfalls. These are the words that look identical across languages, but they betray you in conversation.
They really do. So we're building a definitive map today. We want to ensure that these apparent linguistic traps become reliable foundational knowledge for you.
Think of this deep dive as preemptive strike training.
I like that, a preemptive strike. Because we're moving beyond just simple definitions today, right? We're getting into the functional analysis of why these traps exist and, more importantly, how they change the core meaning of your message.
Exactly. We're focusing on what linguists call false friends, or in Spanish, falsos amigos.
Right.
And these words are born from a shared history, often from Latin, which is exactly why they share so much overlap in spelling and sound. They look like siblings, you know.
They do, but they're not.
They are not. Centuries of cultural and geographical separation have forced them to evolve entirely different, sometimes even contradictory definitions.
And that evolutionary drift, that is the danger zone. When you, as a speaker, encounter a word that looks familiar, your brain just defaults to the meaning it already knows from Spanish. But using that assumed meaning in English, well, it can lead to more than just confusion.
Oh, much more.
It can lead to moments of, unintended humor, professional misrepresentation, or, as we're definitely going to see, some pretty significant social embarrassment.
The stakes are incredibly high. And it's because these mistakes don't just affect your vocabulary, they change the entire context and really the emotional coloring of what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Our aim today is to equip you with the knowledge to recognize these words, to stop that automatic translation impulse,
Right, to put brakes on.
and to deploy the correct English equivalent with confidence.
So to immediately grasp the severity of this linguistic drift, let's start with a foundational case study. This is one that trips up almost every single person making this transition, the word sensible.
Ah, yes. This is a perfect example because it involves a complete inversion of a personality trait.
Yeah.
It's not just a change in definition, it's a change in how you are portraying a person's character.
Precisely. So if a Spanish speaker says, and they're using the Spanish meaning, soy una persona muy sensible, what are they trying to convey?
They're trying to say that they are sensitive, that they are emotional, easily moved, or, deeply affected by the world around them. That is the true meaning of the Spanish word sensible.
But the English listener hears something else entirely.
Completely different.
If you describe someone as sensible in English, you are saying they are reasonable, rational, grounded, and they make good decisions. It's a compliment to their intellect, right?
To their judgment, their ability to remain cool-headed.
Exactly. So if you meant to express profound feeling, vulnerability, emotional depth, but you use the English word sensible, you have accidentally communicated the exact opposite.
You've said you're strong, practical, rational, maybe even emotionally detached. The confusion is total.
It's a complete communication breakdown right from the start.
And this tells us two things immediately. First, and this is our guiding principle for today, never trust the spelling.
Never.
And second, we have to adopt the specific pairing. The source material really emphasizes this. Spanish sensible equals English sensitive. That's the emotional one.
Right.
And English sensible equals reasonable, rational.
Right.
Reasonable. This foundational distinction, it really sets the pace for our entire deep dive.
All right, so let's unpack the functional false friends next. These are the words that, they frequently complicate professional reports, scheduling, descriptive statements.
The day-to-day stuff.
The day-to-day stuff, exactly. We're going to start with the fascinating trap of time versus truth, actually, versus actualmente.
This pair is, I would say, is perhaps the most ubiquitous functional error in business communication. The Spanish word actualmente is strictly a temporal marker.
Right. It's about time.
It points to the present moment. It means currently or nowadays. That's it.
The English word, actually, on the other hand, operates in a completely different domain. It's in the domain of argument and assertion.
Exactly.
Its primary function is not to mark time, but to add emphasis, to assert a truth, or most frequently, to correct a previous statement, an assumption, a misunderstanding. It functions like in fact, or really, or de hecho in Spanish.
The confusion arises from that direct translation impulse we just talked about. A speaker might want to state where they live now,
Right.
and they translate actualmente correctly, and they get the sentence, actually, I live in Bogota.
And the English listener's experience is instantly thrown off.
Mm-hmm.
They interpret that statement as a correction. They're left thinking, wait, contrary to what I just assumed or what you just implied, you live in Bogota. They pause. They're waiting for the argument or the counterpoint that the word actually promises.
But it never comes.
It never comes because the speaker simply meant I currently live there. The word has created this narrative friction where none should exist.
So to resolve this, if you are simply stating your present status, your current activity, your location right now, you must use the correct temporal adverb, currently.
Right.
The sentence becomes, currently I live in Bogota. This removes all ambiguity. There's no challenge to a previous statement.
But let's play with the other side. When should we use actually? Let's imagine a scenario where I say to you, I heard you were transferring to the London office.
Okay. My response, if I'm correcting you, is where actually becomes indispensable. I would assert, actually, I live in Bogota, not London.
Ah, see, there it is.
That actually is the signal. It's a flag that says, I am asserting a fact to correct your false assumption. It serves a crucial argumentative purpose that currently simply cannot fulfill.
What's fascinating here is that the functional difference requires you, the learner, to shift your entire mental approach to the word. You have to determine, am I reporting time? Then I use currently. Or am I asserting a fact? Then I use actually.
It's a deeper level of analysis than just swapping one word for another.
It really is.
And if you look at the etymology, it makes sense. Actualmente stuck close to the Latin root, actualis, meaning present, relating to action or presence.
Okay.
But English actually took a different path. It became tied to actuality or truth. This linguistic split is centuries deep, but you feel the consequences in every single conversation.
Wow. Okay, moving on to another critical functional pair, particularly for professionals. The difference between physical presence and providing aid. We're talking about assist versus assister.
The Spanish verb asistir is very straightforward. It means to attend. It signifies physical presence at an organized event, a meeting, a class, a wedding, a ceremony. You are just there.
You're in the room.
You're in the room. But English assist, however, means to help, to aid, or to provide support. The clear Spanish translation is ayudar.
And this distinction is paramount in any context where you're reporting on your duties or your involvement in something.
Absolutely. The classic and often confusing mistake is saying, I assisted the meeting.
Right. And for the English listener, the image that creates is not of you sitting in the boardroom.
No.
The image is of you actively helping the meeting itself, which is a bit strange, maybe setting up the chairs or running the projector.
Yeah.
It's nonsensical.
So if you are physically present, you must use the accurate English verb for assister, which is to attend. I attended the meeting. That clearly reports your presence. Simple.
Okay, so where does English assist truly belong?
It belongs with active support. If you are helping a person or helping with a task, that's when you use assist. I assisted my manager with the presentation.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or I assisted the team in gathering the data. You are providing help.
And this is where we have to add a layer of complexity for the advanced learner because English has these related phrasal verbs that can also be traps. For example, to attend to means to give care or help, which is actually similar to assist, not simply to be present.
Right. So a doctor attends to a patient. They are caring for them.
But you attend a lecture.
Yeah.
You are just sitting there. You have to be so careful, not just with the core verb, but with its accompanying prepositions. They change everything.
So the takeaway for assist versus assister is simple. Presence uses attend. Help uses assist. Just memorize that specific functional split.
All right, let's pivot sharply. We've seen how functional mistakes can complicate your professional reports. Now let's look at a functional trap where the stakes aren't just professional clarity, but, well, social and medical disaster.
Okay.
We have to discuss constipated versus constipado.
This is non-negotiable territory. You have to master this difference because the context shift moves from a minor ailment to a severe private medical issue.
We need to go slowly and clearly here to make sure this is absorbed.
Agreed. In Spanish, constipado means having a common cold, a simple resfriado.
A stuffy nose, congestion, maybe a light cough. It's an upper respiratory minor issue. You tell your friends about it.
Exactly. In English, constipated is a severe medical term referring to estreñido. It's the inability to pass waste, a digestive blockage. It's highly private and potentially quite serious.
Let's talk about the functional social consequence of this. If a speaker uses the false friend and says, I am constipated, and they just mean to say, I have a cold, the English listener is instantly alarmed. They shift from minor sympathy for a runny nose to immediate, profound worry about a serious internal health crisis.
I recall reading a case study from the source material about this. A speaker, during a formal job interview in English, was asked why they were a bit quieter than usual.
Oh, no.
And they responded with this exact false friend. The interviewer immediately cut the interview short, expressing extreme concern and suggesting they seek urgent medical help. The speaker was mortified. They had inadvertently shared something intensely private and alarming in a professional setting.
That story just highlights the drama and the stakes. The functional breakdown is total. You've asked for sympathy for a stuffy nose, and you've received a high alert for internal collapse.
The correction, fortunately, is very simple, and it requires a complete avoidance of the false friend. The correct, unambiguous phrasing is, I have a cold.
That's it?
That's it. Or, if you want to be slightly more technical, I have congestion. This removes the risk entirely and fulfills the social purpose of sharing a minor ailment.
So just avoid constipated unless you genuinely, absolutely mean the severe digestive issue.
Please.
Okay, we're moving into the emotional and social minefields now, where the words relate to status, feeling, and achievement. These false friends can lead to some extremely awkward, or in one case, some life-altering announcements.
And of course, we have to begin with the absolute king of Spanish-English false friends, embarrassed versus embarazada.
The core difference here is monumental, a feeling of shame or awkwardness versus the state of pregnancy. The risk of mixing these two is unparalleled.
I mean, it really is. Spanish embarazada means pregnant, a biological state. English embarrassed means avergonzado or apanado, an emotional state that results from, a faux pas or a moment of shame.
The dangerous mistake happens when a speaker intends to share a happy life update, a pregnancy, and they use the false friend. They say, my sister is embarrassed.
And the English listener receives a message of profound shame or family scandal.
Right.
The entire nature of the communication changes from celebratory news to deeply concerning personal drama. The listener's mind immediately asks, why is she ashamed? What did she do?
This specific mistake is often tied to the historical evolution of the word. I find this fascinating. In Old Spanish, embarazar once meant to impede or to hinder, to be weighed down. And while that connotation led to the modern meaning of pregnant, the English word embarrass evolved from a French root meaning to puzzle or to impede, and it settled on the feeling of being mentally impeded by awkwardness.
So, to correct this, the fix must be absolute. If you mean pregnancy, you have to use the English equivalent, my sister is pregnant.
And if you feel awkward because, say, you forgot a friend's name in a social setting, you express that feeling of shame, I'm embarrassed. The lesson here is that you must completely decouple the sound from the meaning. They are entirely separate concepts.
Our next pairing contrasts an abstract achievement with a very concrete physical feature, exit versus éxito.
Spanish éxito means success. It's an abstract noun. It describes the favorable completion or outcome of a professional or personal endeavor.
An English exit means a way out, a physical doorway, a route, a means of departure. It's salida in Spanish.
So they share a root that relates to going out, but English internalized it as a physical path.
While Spanish applied it metaphorically to the outcome of an effort.
Right, so you have to establish a fixed mental pairing for instantaneous recall. When you think success, you think éxito. When you think exit, you think salida. You have to keep those pairs surgically separate in your mind.
The practical utility of the English word exit is entirely concrete. You will only encounter it in terms of public infrastructure and navigation. Airport signs, fire doors, theaters, they all use the word exit.
It defines the path you must take to leave a physical space.
So the functional mistake is to describe an achievement by saying, I achieved a great exit in my career. The listener, focused on that physical meaning, is thinking, you had a great way out. Did you run away quickly?
Right, it sounds like you escaped.
Exactly. You must replace that instinct with the correct abstract noun, which is success.
Okay. Next, we look at a difference that is almost philosophical. Realize versus realizar. This distinction separates internal mental discovery from external physical execution.
So Spanish realizar is an action verb. It means to do, to carry out, to make, or to execute a project or a task. It's focused on external, measurable action.
And English realize is an internal verb focused entirely on mental discovery. It means to notice, to suddenly understand, or to become aware of something. It's the Spanish concept of darse cuenta.
The historical nuance here is really interesting. The English philosophical tradition, especially during the Enlightenment, became heavily focused on internal consciousness and mental discovery, that aha moment.
Right.
And, well, to realize did once mean to make real, a physical act. Its primary modern meaning solidified as internal perception.
So therefore, the common mistake saying, I realized a project, is deeply jarring to the English ear. Because realize is an internal verb, you can't apply it to an external object like a project. The listener interprets it as, you understood a project, did you not complete it? It's confusing.
To correct this, if you are completing a task, you use verbs focused on external action. I did a project, I carried out a project, or I executed the project.
And if you had that moment of mental clarity where the truth suddenly dawned on you, that's when you use realize. I realized I had forgotten my keys, or I realized the cost was too high.
This separation between the mind, realize, and the physical world, carry out, is the crucial divide. You are either thinking or you are doing.
Before we move on to our final set of traps, I want to briefly revisit that first example, sensible. Not as a full re-explanation, but just as a quick check-in. This is vital because if you retain only two things from today, it should be constipated and this one.
I agree completely. Let's do a fast contrast. If you hear sensible in English, immediately substitute the word rational.
Rational.
If you're thinking the Spanish word sensible, immediately substitute the English word sensitive. The distinction governs whether you're describing a person of strong logic or a person of deep emotion. That rapid substitution has to become automatic.
Our final section of false friends focuses on those that dictate context, where you are, who you are with, and when an event is occurring. These mistakes can alter the very structure of your narrative.
We'll start with location and resource access. Library versus libraria. And this deals with the distinction between a public, non-commercial resource and a commercial establishment.
Spanish libraria means a bookstore.
Right.
This is a commercial establishment where books are sold for profit. The purpose of going to a library is purely transactional. You're buying something.
And English library means a public collection of books, a biblioteca. It's a civic or academic resource where you go to research, to study, or to borrow materials, but not to purchase them. The purpose of going to a library is to access resources or knowledge.
Okay, so let's consider the functional implication of that. If you tell a colleague, I'm going to the library to get that new reference manual, what do they understand?
Do they understand you plan to borrow the book or maybe access a digital archive? It's temporary access.
But if you say, I'm going to the bookstore to get that new reference manual, they understand you are spending money to purchase a copy for keeps.
Exactly. And if the colleague needed that information urgently, the distinction really matters. Is the resource available for free access right now in the library? Or do we have to wait for a purchase order to go through from the bookstore?
This distinction is also deeply cultural. The library is often seen in English-speaking cultures as a place of quiet, scholarly endeavor, while the bookstore is a commercial space, often with cafes and loud retail energy. Confusing the two alters the social expectation of your environment. So the English term for a libraria is always bookstore.
Next, a vital difference for defining your social sphere. Parents versus parientes. This determines whether you're referring to the nuclear family or the extended clan.
A very important one. Spanish parientes means relatives. This is a broad umbrella term. It covers aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, in-laws, the entire extended family structure.
English parents, however, is highly specific. It refers only to the mother and father, the padres. It defines the immediate primary parental figures.
The linguistic danger here is significant because the words are so close in sound.
Very close.
If you are describing a large family reunion and you attempt to convey that all your relatives are coming and you say, all my parents are coming to the party,
the English listener immediately stops. They process that you appear to have multiple sets of mothers and fathers, which creates immense confusion and a potentially unnecessary explanation about adoption or blended families.
It just grinds the conversation to a halt.
It does. And this error happens because the Spanish word padres can sometimes be used inclusively to mean parents when referring to a couple, which reinforces the connection. But parientes always requires the translation relatives in English.
So the mnemonic here has to be fixed and simple for clarity. Padres equals parents. Parientes equals relatives. Keep those two functional pairings totally separate to avoid large-scale family confusion when you're describing social events.
And finally, we tackle a subtle but powerful difference in conveying temporal intention. This one is a narrative device. Eventually versus eventualmente.
This one is tricky. Spanish eventualmente often means occasionally, sometimes, or perhaps contingently. It refers to frequency, a sporadic or random occurrence.
English eventually, conversely, means in the end, after some time, finally, or ultimately. It refers to the final outcome or conclusion of a process, and it usually implies a delay, a struggle, or a wait.
Right. So if a Spanish speaker wants to express that they work from home sometimes and they translate eventualmente directly, they might produce the sentence, eventually, I work from home.
And the English listener interprets this as the long-awaited conclusion of a difficult narrative. They think, wow, you battled for remote work for months, but you finally won.
Right. The word signals this powerful endpoint. But the speaker only meant frequency, that they work from home a veces.
The timescale and the dramatic tension are completely misaligned. And this error can be devastating in negotiations or project reporting, where the listener has to understand if something is a sporadic occurrence or the final conclusion of a long process.
Absolutely. Let's analyze the correct usage. If you're describing the final outcome after a period of waiting, struggle, or delay, you use eventually.
For example, after many interviews, eventually, I found a better job. This implies success and resolution. There was a journey.
And if you mean a veces, the frequency, you have to use the English term occasionally or sometimes. Example, occasionally I work from home when the weather is bad.
The functional shift is severe. Confusing these two moves the meaning from the conclusion of a narrative arc to just a random sporadic event, which fundamentally impacts the way the listener interprets your story or your report.
Okay. We have successfully navigated the 10 most treacherous linguistic traps between Spanish and English. We've covered everything from professional assistance to major medical statements. So our final section is dedicated to consolidating this learning into high-impact, actionable strategies for you.
We begin with the prime directive for any serious language learner. You must develop extreme skepticism.
I love that. Extreme skepticism.
Never trust a word solely because it shares similar spelling or sound with its counterpart in your native language. Appearance is, quite literally, a lie designed to confuse you.
These words, these false friends, they are proof that a shared Latin heritage only goes so far. The functional evolution in different cultures means their current applications have diverged wildly.
You have to stop that automatic translation impulse and verify the meaning of any familiar-looking word.
The second, and this is a critical strategy, involves how you acquire new vocabulary. Rote memorization. Just learning that A means B is insufficient, especially with these tricky pairs.
It's not enough. You must adopt the practice of always learning a new English word with one complete functional example sentence that locks the word into its correct context.
Let's use realize again as an example. Don't just learn realize or darse cuenta.
No. Learn the sentence, I realized I left my keys at home. This anchors the word realize firmly as a mental discovery. If you only memorize the word in isolation, your brain is always tempted to revert to the Spanish meaning of realizar, to carry out. The sentence creates a kind of fence around the correct meaning.
Our final strategy is a memory aid built around focused repetition. We advise you to immediately create a concise, personalized resource, a small list of my top 10 false friends.
And this list should not be definitions. It should be the core contrast.
Right.
And you should review this list for just 2 focused minutes every day. Fast, repeated engagement aids recall and moves this critical knowledge from academic understanding into immediate, automatic, and error-free usage.
So, for example, your list entry might look like this. Sensible, EN, is not emotion, it is reasonable.
Or, constipated EN is not a cold, it is a digestive issue.
Or actually, EN is not time, it is truth assertion.
Yeah.
Short, sharp contrasts.
Exactly. Now let's make this practical. We're going to conduct a final, comprehensive, and interactive quiz. But instead of simply reciting the correct sentences, we're going to challenge the false translation. We will use the common errors from the source material and ask, what did the speaker think they were saying, and what did the listener actually hear? This is about building critical listening skills.
I love this. So you, the listener, listen carefully to the syntax and the context. We'll break down the misalignment instantly.
Okay, challenge 1. The speaker says, I realized a new recipe yesterday. What was the intent and what was the confusion?
The intent was, I made or created a new recipe using the Spanish realizer meaning.
And the confusion.
The listener heard, I suddenly understood a new recipe. It sounds incomplete, a little strange. It suggests a mental breakthrough, not a culinary act.
And the correction.
I made a new recipe yesterday.
Perfect. Challenge 2. The speaker, feeling ill, states, I'm very constipated today. What was the intent and what was the high-stakes consequence?
The intent was to say, I have a cold. The high-stakes consequence is that the listener heard a serious private digestive issue. This is the moment of maximum social alarm.
And the correction is, of course,
I have a cold today.
simple and safe. Challenge 3. The speaker, reporting on their duties, says, I assisted the class, so I understand the material. What was the functional misunderstanding here?
The speaker meant, I attended the class, talking about their physical presence.
Right.
But the listener heard, you helped the class, which doesn't make logical sense in that context. The function was mixed up. They were reporting presence, not aid.
So the correction is,
I attended the class.
excellent. Challenge 4. The speaker says, my parientes are coming to visit next week. What was the scale of the family confusion?
Well, this is a direct injection of Spanish into English. The speaker meant, my relatives are coming. The confusion is that parientes is not an English word, so the listener is left guessing, or maybe they associate it with parents, and then we're back to that problem.
So the correction is simple.
My relatives are coming to visit next week.
Okay, challenge 5. The speaker, hoping to state their current location, says, actually, I am waiting for the bus. Why is the listener waiting for an argument?
Because actually implies the speaker is correcting a false assumption, like, you thought I was driving, but actually I'm waiting for the bus. If the speaker only meant currently, they introduce this unnecessary confrontational energy into the conversation.
Right, and the correction.
Currently, I am waiting for the bus.
Okay, challenge 6. The speaker, describing their emotional state, says, I felt very sensible after the sad movie. What personality trait did they accidentally claim?
They meant to claim the trait of deep feeling, sensitive.
Right.
They accidentally claimed they were rational, level-headed, and unemotional after the sad movie. The description is totally inverted.
So the correction must be,
I felt very sensitive after the sad movie.
Challenge 7. The speaker says, the company achieved great exit last quarter. What do they confuse? The path or the outcome?
They confused the abstract outcome, exito, with the physical path, exit, the listener hears. The company achieved a great way out, a great departure. It sounds like they flood the market.
Exactly. And the correction.
The company achieved great success last quarter.
Last one. Challenge 8. The speaker says, eventually I go to the gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Why does the narrative flow feel strange?
Because eventually implies a final conclusion after a long wait. It makes the sentence sound like the speaker finally achieved the ability to go to the gym only on those specific days, rather than just expressing frequency.
And the intent was?
The intent was occasionally or sometimes, so the correction is, occasionally I go to the gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
By breaking down the error like this, by focusing on the misalignment, you are training your brain to stop at that point of friction and deploy the correct word.
This functional practice is the essence of mastery. It moves beyond rote definition and ensures you are conveying the precise context, the time frame, and the emotion you intend.
We have completed our deep dive into the linguistic landmines, turning the top 10 false friends into reliable, functional knowledge. You, the learner, are now equipped with the clarity and confidence necessary to navigate these high-stakes conversations.
Remember that critical thinking extends into every domain, including vocabulary. You now possess a toolkit designed to override the powerful surface similarity of these words.
Use the memory strategies we discussed: synthesis, sentence learning, and focused repetition.
We established right at the start that these words are false friends precisely because they share a deep historical connection, a common parent in Latin. The shared root is what makes them look so tantalizingly similar today.
So, as a closing challenge and a final provocative thought to fuel your curiosity, if these 10 words have strayed so far from their shared ancestor, what other words, perhaps less common but equally familiar-looking words that weren't on our list today, might also be subtle, functional traps just waiting to be discovered?
Use this knowledge to encourage further active curiosity and self-testing. Be skeptical of the familiar, and you'll not only master the language, but truly understand the history embedded within it.
Until next time, keep exploring those linguistic frontiers.